The United Kingdom has a large collection of amusement parks, but only some of which have a great roller coaster. Sure, Alton Towers has the Smiler and Nemesis, but the tallest roller coaster in the country has been the same since 1994 and the fastest since 2006. However, this is all set to change in 2024, when the UK will be constructing its tallest, fastest, and best coaster. Somehow, this massive roller coaster has remained under the radar for most, but with construction starting, here's my full analysis of Project Exodus at Thorpe Park. Before I begin, let me say thank you to Amusement Insider for providing copyright-free footage of upcoming coasters. His videos are great and definitely go check him out. Thorpe Park is the premier amusement park in the London area and boasts 7 different coasters, one of which is the fastest coaster in the UK, Stealth. However, located on the left side of the park, where the old log ride was next to the famous Saw roller coaster, will be a new masterpiece of a roller coaster. Let's dive into some stats. The ride has an unknown speed, but with a height of 236 feet or 72 meters, about 20 feet taller than the big one at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, the previous tallest coaster in the country, Project Exodus will most likely beat the 80-mile-per-hour top speed of Stealth. This hypercoaster will be unique, however, featuring inversions by Mack Rides, a company famous for very comfy trains, great inversions, and transitions. The ride will be built in a neglected corner of the park whose only real draw was Saw, giving life in a new section, and also life to a new skyline. The entrance bridge into Thorpe Park will have a huge new coaster to the left next to Saw. Speaking of which, this tall but very short coaster will have a splashdown, as the whole coaster is located over a massive lake. With that said, let's dive into this massive coaster's layout. Your experience on Project Exodus will begin with a hopefully themed queue up with the rest of the Merlin Park standards. The layout starts with a right downwards Outer Bank turn. Similar to Untamed at Wallaby Holland, Project Exodus starts off strong with a very wacky lateral-filled turn. Slow Outer Banks are always weird laterals that push you out but also down at the same time. This turn then enters straight into the steep 236-foot tall lift hill, which will give riders a view straight into the suburbs of London and also a scarily tall lift hill into the lake below. The old log flume provided a perfect plot of land for this compact coaster. The train then descends in a drop that is 90 degrees but twisted. Similarly to Stealth's drop in the same park, it's 90 degrees, but then it turns to the left very quickly. However, while Stealth turns 90 degrees, Exodus does a full 180-degree turn, turning the coaster all the way around very quickly. How will this drop feel? I've ridden Twisted RMC drops, most notably Twisted Cyclone, which feels very wacky in the back row because your body prepares for you to be dropped straight, but then it turns whipping riders. This will definitely be the most violent whip on the coaster, the whole park, and possibly the whole country, but we will discuss on how this stacks up against other coasters in the UK later. This drop will be terrifying in the front, diving straight towards the water, and an adrenaline-filled airtime and lateral mixed whip downwards in the back. Leveling out, riders speed up into an Immelman-type element. Unlike most Immelmans, however, the train doesn't twist out on the descent. Mack Rides wanted to provide the most airtime and whip possible, so riders twist out of the inversion early and violently dive downwards. This again is a mix of a few negatives into a strong whip before an ejector hill down. Back row riders will definitely be getting some strong forces here. And those wondering, doesn't Mack usually do hang-time filled inversions? Don't worry, there will be plenty of that coming up. Diving out of this extreme element, riders take a steep drop into arguably the best element on the coaster. You thought Steel Vengeance's Outer Bank was nuts? Take a look at this. Pantheon's Outer Bank, according to riders, was a little underwhelming due to the slow speed. However, this Outer Bank is taken much faster and has a special twist, literally. This turn is 180 degrees, meaning in the same amount of time the train goes almost double the distance of Steel Vengeance while Outer Banked. Yes, the train goes slower, but this should provide some of the best sustained floater in the world. However, the descent of this Outer Bank isn't normal. Instead, the track twists outwards into a downward barrel roll. This looks to be one of the fastest paced versions in the back and will be full of airtime as well. Because of how the transition is banked out after the Outer Bank, riders will still be out of their seats while the world spins around them, making this possibly one of the greatest inversions of all time and most likely the best in the country. Front row riders will get sustained airtime while back row riders will get an extreme outwards whip on the inversion. But Exodus has one more inversion up its sleeve. Up next is an extended dive loop. Here is where Mack's hang time comes in. The dive loop is very extended, so the inversion lasts for nearly 5 seconds. It's almost like a 0G stall, but instead of a whip out, it takes a very intense positive filled valley, all in addition to a whippy transition into the element. Unfortunately, that was one of the last elements on Exodus. This dive loop leads straight into a splashdown, which, hopefully visible from the entrance bridge and queue, will be a stunning visual both off and on the ride. This also acts as a small brake run so the train can take the next few elements without killing the rider. While some speed is gone, Exodus keeps at the pace with a wacky 90-degree banked hill. This will almost be a wave turn with minor sideways airtime, but most of the thrill comes from the violent whips in and out of the quick element. If the drop isn't the whippiest element, it's definitely this. Finally, Exodus ends with one final aggressive ejector pop into the brake run. This airtime moment is fast and looks pretty sustained. Thus concludes your experience on Project Exodus. So what do I think of Project Exodus before we get into comparisons? I think that this ride is both visually stunning and is going to be the best coaster in the country, and here's why. Besides a launch, this coaster is one of the most well-rounded coasters ever built. Some may complain about how short the coaster is, but in my opinion, just like O'Brien, it doesn't need to be a long ride to provide the thrill. This ride has violent whips, aggressive inversions, a drop like no other, hang time, ejector airtime in 3 spots, and phenomenal floater airtime over the Outer Bank. And this ride just has unique elements. Nowhere else in Europe will you find a drop and dive loop like that, and nowhere else in the world will you find an Outer Bank with a death roll. Project Exodus will not only draw in coaster enthusiasts from around every single corner of the globe, but will also draw the general public to ride the UK's tallest coaster after 30 years. That's right, 30 years. The marketing will be crazy, and guests will immediately be hooked when they see it overlooking the entrance of the park. In my opinion, the best element looks like the Outer Banked inversion, and the worst looks like the Immelmann, but even that Immelmann is aggressive and has airtime. I hope that this is the final layout, which it should be, and I can't wait to see how construction is now that the coaster is approved. But let's quickly compare this to other coasters in the UK. Why do I say that this is the best coaster in the country? Well, look at other coasters in the United Kingdom. The tallest coaster up to this point was the Big One, which said by many is one of the rougher arrows and doesn't provide a good experience. Project Exodus shows quality over quantity, Big One does not. While inversion lovers may enjoy the wacky Smiler more than this, Exodus is just a more well-rounded coaster. Look at Smiler, look at Stealth, they all focus on one thing. Smiler is inversions and Stealth is intensity. Rita is intense. Nemesis is intense. Oblivion has the drop. There really isn't a ride in the country that focuses on whips quite like this ride. Also, there isn't a coaster in the UK that combines all these elements. Unlike the other rides mentioned, Exodus actually combines all these elements into one well-rounded coaster, making it the greatest coaster in the UK. And Thorpe Park really needed a standout coaster like this. Like previously mentioned, this is the most well-rounded coaster in the UK, and Thorpe Park really didn't have a whippy coaster focused on transitions like this. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Comment what you think of Exodus, and have a great rest of your day.